Look around the world, and you'll see something strange. Human skin comes in an incredible range of colors. Some people have very dark skin. Others have very light skin. Some have shades that seem to sit somewhere in between. It feels so normal that most of us never stop to question it. But imagine if you could travel back in time and meet the very first humans. What color would their skin be? Would they look like people living in Africa today, Europe, Asia, the Middle East? Or would they have a skin color that no longer exists at all? The strange thing is that scientists have spent decades trying to answer this question, and what they discovered changes the way we think about human identity. Because when you trace the story of skin color back to its beginning, you find something unexpected. There may be no such thing as an original human skin color. At first, that idea sounds impossible. Everything has an origin. Languages have origins. Cultures have origins. Even species have origins. So surely humanity must have started with one original skin color. But the story is stranger than that. To understand why, we need to travel back millions of years, long before cities, long before farming, and even long before modern humans existed. Picture this: a distant ancestor of humans moving through the forests of Africa. Unlike humans today, these ancient relatives were covered in thick body hair. That hair served an important purpose. It protected their skin from the powerful African sun. As long as the hair remained, skin color was not a major issue. The hair acted like a shield. But then something changed. Scientists believe that as human ancestors became more active, walking longer distances and hunting across open landscapes, thick body hair became a problem. Imagine running under a hot African sun while wearing a heavy fur coat. Your body would overheat quickly. So over time, our ancestors began losing much of their body hair. And this raises another question. Once the protective fur disappeared, what happened to the skin underneath? Suddenly, the sun became a much bigger threat. The sunlight reaching Earth contains ultraviolet radiation, often called UV radiation. Too much UV can damage cells and interfere with important biological processes. Humans needed a new form of protection, and this is where things get interesting. The body already had a tool for dealing with sunlight, a pigment called melanin. Melanin acts like a natural sunscreen. The more melanin your skin produces, the darker your skin appears. Scientists believe that as our ancestors lost body hair, natural selection favored individuals with higher levels of melanin. Their skin provided better protection against intense sunlight. Over many generations, darker skin became an important survival advantage. But here's what most people don't realize. This doesn't necessarily mean that dark skin was the first permanent skin color humans ever had. Why? Because evolution is not a single moment. It is a continuous process. Imagine trying to identify the exact first wave in an ocean. You can't. Every wave grows from another wave. In the same way, skin color was constantly changing, generation after generation. There was no magical day when a human woke up with the original skin color. Instead, countless tiny changes accumulated over vast stretches of time. The strange thing is that evolution rarely creates sharp boundaries. Nature prefers gradual transitions, and that creates a fascinating problem. If skin color evolved gradually, can there really be an original version at all? Think about it. If one generation looked almost identical to the generation before it, and the next generation looked almost identical as well, where would you draw the line? The answer becomes surprisingly difficult, but the story becomes even more complex, because skin color isn't controlled by a single gene. It is influenced by many different genes working together. Imagine an artist mixing dozens of colors on a palette. Small adjustments can create endless variations. Human skin works in a similar way. Tiny genetic differences can produce a wide range of appearances. This means that even early human populations probably showed some variation. Not everyone would have looked exactly the same, and that leads to another mystery. If darker skin offered advantages in Africa, why do many people today have lighter skin? The answer begins with a journey. Around 60 to 70,000 years ago, groups of humans started leaving Africa. They spread into the Middle East, then Asia, then Europe. Eventually, they reached almost every corner of the planet. Imagine walking farther and farther away from the equator. The sunlight gradually changes. The amount of UV radiation decreases. The environment becomes completely different. And suddenly, the survival challenges change as well. In regions with weaker sunlight, having extremely high levels of melanin could create a different problem. Human bodies use sunlight to help produce vitamin D. Vitamin D is essential for healthy bones and many other functions. If too little sunlight penetrates the skin, vitamin D production can become difficult. So in areas with lower UV levels, lighter skin sometimes provided an advantage. It allowed the body to absorb sunlight more efficiently. Over thousands of years, populations adapted to their local environments. The result was not a single direction of change, it was multiple directions at once. Different groups evolved different solutions to different challenges. The real surprise is that similar skin tones sometimes evolved independently. Think about that for a moment. Two populations living thousands of miles apart could develop similar appearances for completely different reasons. Nature often arrives at similar solutions through separate paths, which means skin color is not a simple family tree. It is a map of adaptation. Every shade tells a story about geography, sunlight, migration, and survival. But here's where the mystery becomes deeply human. Many people view skin color as a marker of major differences between groups, yet genetics reveals something remarkable. Humans are incredibly similar. The genetic differences responsible for visible skin color represent only a tiny fraction of our DNA. Imagine two enormous books containing millions of letters. If only a handful of letters differed, the books would still be almost identical. That is closer to the reality of human populations than many people realize. The visible differences catch our attention because they are easy to see. But beneath the surface, humanity shares an astonishing amount of common ancestry. And this raises another question. If skin color changes so readily in response to environmental conditions, what does that say about race itself? Scientists increasingly view skin color as an adaptation rather than a reliable indicator of deep biological divisions. In other words, skin color tells us more about where our ancestors lived than about who they fundamentally were. Picture Earth from space. No borders, no labels, no categories. Just one planet covered by environments that shaped human populations in different ways. The sunlight near the equator created one set of pressures. The colder northern regions created another. The deserts, forests, mountains, and coastlines all influenced the human story. Skin color became part of that story, a response to the world, not a separation from one another. But the story is stranger than that. Recent genetic discoveries suggest that the history of skin color is even more complicated than scientists once believed. For a long time, many assumed that populations followed a simple path from dark skin to light skin as humans moved north. Reality turned out to be far messier. Ancient DNA studies have revealed combinations of traits that seem surprising today. Some ancient Europeans may have had darker skin than many people expect. Some populations carried mixtures of characteristics that don't fit modern assumptions. The deeper scientists look into the past, the more they discover that human history refuses to stay inside neat categories. And this is where things become philosophical. Humans love clear answers. We want beginnings. We want categories. We want simple stories. But nature often refuses to cooperate. The closer we get to the question of an original human skin color, the more the answer seems to dissolve. Because there was never a frozen moment when evolution stopped and announced a final result. There was only change, continuous, endless change. Generation after generation, adapting to an ever-changing world. Imagine standing beside a river. You point to the water and ask which drop is the original river. The question itself begins to fall apart. The river exists because it is always moving. Humanity works much the same way. Our ancestors changed, their descendants changed, and those descendants changed again. Skin color became part of a long evolutionary journey that is still unfolding today. Every person alive carries traces of that journey. Every shade contains echoes of migration, adaptation, and survival. Every human carries a piece of ancient history written into their skin, and perhaps that is the most surprising discovery of all. The question was never really about finding one original color. The question was about understanding why colors existed in the first place. And once we understand that, something profound becomes visible. Human skin is not a collection of separate stories. It is one story. A story that began in Africa and expanded across the world. A story shaped by sunlight, time, and countless generations. A story shared by all of us. So, was there an original human skin color? The deeper we look, the harder that question becomes to answer. Not because scientists know too little, but because evolution does not work in neat starting points. Skin color was never a fixed identity handed to humanity at the beginning. It was a response, a conversation between our ancestors and the environments they lived in. The color of your skin is more than a physical trait. It is evidence of a journey that lasted thousands of generations, a record of adaptation, survival, and movement across an entire planet. And when we see skin color that way, something changes. The differences that seem so important begin to look smaller, because beneath every shade lies the same story, the same species, the same shared ancestry, the same long human journey. If you enjoyed exploring this question, consider subscribing for more stories about the mysteries hidden inside everyday things, and let us know in the comments what human trait would you like to uncover next.